In the newest set, DP got 2 new break rides. Kaiser, which is probably the one that you've seen more of. Probably if you're a fan of Different Fight, you obviously know about him. And we also got Original Saver Zero. I really like the name. Original, like OG Zero, like before Vanguard Zero, there was Original Zero. Just like most break rides, he has that ability where if he is boosted, he gets plus 3k. Obviously, we like it when you don't need to be boosted, but it's usually not a big deal. His ability is when you break right on top of him, he gives plus 10k to the unit. You then get to give a unit on your opponent's side of the board minus 8k. And if you rode an alien, you can then call another alien from your deck. I really love what they did with Zero here. Not only did they give him a buff in his minus, they also gave it a place to be alongside Dayusha within the alien archetype. The direction I wanted to take Zero was to put him in my Zeal deck and make the most use out of the plussing and the control that Zero gives. I also want to get a fat hand early game and then board wipe late game. When he was officially announced with the Japanese server, I was seeing a lot of people on Reddit saying stuff like he might sometimes be better than Kaiser, because Kaiser's ability is that when you break right, you have to counterblast 1. He gives the plus 10k like Zero does, but he gives a crit. So the equivalence here is that Zero does not use up any resources. Kaiser does give a crit. Zero allows us to get a free possible minus and then a plus. Kaiser has this really powerful ability of being able to turn off PGs, which Zero obviously can't do. Zero doesn't allow us to have a powerful finish. But I think the fact that it doesn't use up resources gives it this kind of more flexible position that Kaiser doesn't allow the decks to have. The alien bonus really makes Zeal this really powerful kind of search engine now. Technically, you can also run Zero with an Enigman build, since Enigman is an alien as well. But since it's a little too weak now, because it's just so old and it will be a while before we get new support for it, Zeal is just kind of the best alien option currently. Reverse Kaiser also does this whole like minusing thing that Zero wants to do, but since he is a Battleroid, just like other Dayushas, they don't really get that free plus that Zero gives. I don't think it's as flexible. That's why I'm not playing any of them. Obviously, as you see, I don't even have any. That's why I chose not to even craft any either, because technically this one of flex spot of Leviathan would just be a 4th Dayusha, but I'm too lazy to use up my V coupons to make a second one. Technically, I got this one from rank fighting, but I just don't want to use up any for a card that I don't think helps the deck too much. So since Zero doesn't use up any resources, Zeal's Counterblast 2 becomes a lot more easy to use. So Zeal is obviously kind of like the win con of being able to board wipe the opponent, get really fat himself, minusing the opponent, and overall just try to have not a finishing turn with Zero and Zeal, but just like run so far ahead that the opponent cannot catch up. Besides Zero, the other addition to the deck is Vanguard. He is an alien that has an 8k butt, but he allows for the deck to now have a very consistent plus engine now. It is very easy for this deck to get interceptors and even the Vanguard below 6k. We can use new units like Gigabolt to use our soul to be able to get 9k units to 6k. And the Zeal boys themselves are minusing 5k, which can technically be used on the opponent's Vanguard to make an 11k a 6k. I still play one Mika just to get us that fat hand that I really want, but I really don't like the Counterblast 2. But since Zeal is the only other unit using up Counterblast now, I don't really mind the one of, but I think this is the more flex spot. I just still like the plussing in hand. We still have to play like awkward units like Gunrock. The minus 2k helps. It doesn't do as much since we now have units like Gigavolt that do minus 3k, which that 1k difference is enough for Vanguard being able to get us that free plus versus not. We still play it because on the turn that Zeal does the board wipe, most units won't die naturally because it's just minus 6k. So that means there might be a 7k in the back that we might want to snipe. So Gunrock is really good for just getting that minus 2k left over. Now I'm playing 2 Laurel. Something really cool about Laurel is that he is an alien. This means you can go search for him with Zero. I like to play 2 copies of him This is just so in case one ends up in the damage or something, we can still go get that second one. You don't rely on him, but him being able to get us a second swing with our Vanguard, if our opponent doesn't have interceptors, is really cool because since we play the 9 draws, that means we can technically turn our like a rearguard swing in a normal game into a 21k Vanguard swing with drive checks. So early game going from grade 1 Zeal to grade 2 is a really good way to snipe starters. Sniping a Conroe against like a Kagero player is like, as a Kagero main myself, it feels very satisfying. So when using Zero's ability to go and fetch an alien, this is going to be a very game situational decision. Laurel is typically going to be the unit that we're going to go get if we're doing this whole like finishing turn or like going aggro for an extension kind of play. But if you're looking for more of a control play, maybe going for something like a Gigavolt to minus the board more might be a more powerful play. Gigavolt plus Zeal's board wipe will kill any interceptor besides 10Ks. In case you were low on hand, because maybe this is a later game turn, or you were aggroed really early, you can go get interceptors, obviously, like Bungreed or Gunrock, just to get you some blocking in the front row. I wish there was like a 10k vanilla alien, but sadly both of the 10k vanillas that DP has are Battleroids. Early game, we won't be doing much. Like I said, we'll just be kind of drawing stuff with Bungreed and like killing snipers with Zeal. Late game, when you have this like fat hand that you've been able to accumulate with Bungreed and just kind of not having to commit to the board, we will then make a full board so that when Zeal uses his board wipe ability, we will get the most out of it. This kind of makes our Link Joker plays a little weird because they won't be able to lock our stuff early game since we won't really have a board out. But that does mean if we don't finish them on a Zeal turn, we just gave them a full board to use to like Omega lock us. In a similar vein, we get our ass kicked by Garmor. Garmor's pseudo resist ability technically does work against this whole minusing thing. I thought originally how the mechanic worked was the minusing was an ability and that the cards themselves were kind of doing like a game changing effect, if that makes sense, where it's kind of changing how minusing works. But technically how Garmor works is he's checking the card saying, is it trying to retire? And that is coming from the card. So when you do something like a Gunrock, it then says retire the rear guard whose attack becomes 0. So Garmor is checking that ability text. And since it's not like a rules text, it does work. So Monkey Brain says, don't read card. Read the cards. Reading the cards tell you what the cards do. Thinking of Zero, because of him, I was able to like re-fall in love with Zeal. I was already interested in playing Zeal again because I heard the voice lines from Different Fight of reverse Kenji just like screaming, and it made me so happy. And I already had like this running joke with my roommate of like Zeal, like got me like really excited. And when I heard it, oh, it was so funny, dude. He does this thing where he gives a low tier deck a boost, and it makes like a fun deck now a playable deck. And that's what I love to see from these like old iterations of cards. That's what's beautiful about Zero the game, is that it makes like cards like Zero the card another way of looking at it, because like they already tried it in paper, it didn't work. So they're just like, well, how do we make this card fun? And they like knocked it out of the park, and I love it. He's definitely getting like a grade 3 for me. Technically, I'm a grade 3 like minus. So he works with basically all of DP technically because he's very flexible. He gives a huge boost to an old archetype. Technically, he scales with other aliens. So as more aliens get released, he has to be checked on because of how he may interact with it, which is really cool. Sadly though, if you look through the TCG, aliens don't really look so good going forward. Zeal does get a Legion, but it's like some weird counter charger. And Nigman does get some cool stuff during G, but that's like so far in the future, and break rights might not even be relevant by then. Hopefully, like when Zeal gets released, maybe he'll also get a buff, just like Zero did. Like how they looked at him creatively and made him not just like a broken card, but just a fun, powerful card. I want to see more of that, and I'd love to see more of that moving forward. I understand like they can't make it like the highest tier DP because that's kind of reserved for robots, but just keep making it playable. Just every deck archetype that you want to support should be at all times playable for your game, for the people that love them. And they know that, you know that. I just want it to be understood why I think this unit is such like a great thing for the game. Thank you to anyone who's been supporting Triple Rare. I did a fun little giveaway on Twitter where I was trying to give away as many of these Fear of Lock Chaos stickers. So these will be for in the future given out in other products, possibly t-shirts that I'm really excited to start working on for you. I'll maybe have something like that ready to show you by the end of the month. So keep an eye out on the Triple Rare Twitter and Instagram if you're interested. That means a lot. I never know how to end these. That's all I got.